Welcome to the InterBest Contractor Safety Orientation 2020. Due to the circumstances caused by the coronavirus, we're having to do this a little bit different than the past. You should have access to the PDF version of our contractor safety book, and this will be an overview. Contractor responsibilities include exercising the right to safely stop the job. This is extremely important. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's a fellow coworker, a supervisor, another contractor, an InterBest employee, or a visitor on site. If you see somebody doing something unsafe, by all means put a stop to it before it becomes an incident. Train all employees and subcontractor employees prior to working on InterBest sites. Prohibit unauthorized visitors from entering the work site. And we expect you to report to InterBest HSE all incidents that occur on property or facilities owned or leased by InterBest. This includes injuries, illnesses, releases to the environment, vehicle accidents, thefts, acts of vandalism, property damage, or any other similar occurrence. We expect you to cooperate with InterBest in investigating any incidents and take corrective action to control any and all identified hazards in the course of work. If you have to use an airlift, you must be trained on that specific make and model of airlift. Only use the airlift for its intended use by the manufacturer. The lift operator must be qualified and a card-carrying person. An inspection prior to use is required. Any unsafe conditions shall be corrected prior to operating the airlift, and equipment shall not be used if tests indicate controls are not working properly. Contractors shall conduct themselves in a manner that respects the rights of the surrounding community. Community relations are critical to InterBest success. The contractor and InterBest, where appropriate, shall work together to support this activity. All such activities shall be coordinated through the designated InterBest representative. Contractors are not to represent themselves as speaking on behalf of InterBest. The confined space entry. The confined space entry is defined as an area that is not designed for continuous human occupancy, that has a limited means of ingress or egress, or present a toxic environment. Contractors should provide advance notice of all confined space entries. Prior to entering confined space, steps should be taken to minimize atmospheric hazards. Atmospheric testing must be conducted continuously while in a confined space. Prior to entering confined space, a confined space permit must be completed, and all individuals participating in the confined space must be trained on their required duties prior to entering confined space. Drugs and alcohol are not permitted. The use and distribution or being under the influence of legal drugs while on InterBest property is prohibited. It is each person's responsibility to notify his or her supervisor when taking any medication or substance that may adversely affect his or her ability to work. And InterBest reserves the right to search vehicles and equipment for prohibited items. Electrical safety. Only qualified and authorized persons shall work on electrical equipment and devices. All electrical equipment shall be properly grounded in good working condition. Electrical equipment shall be de-energized prior to performing work on the equipment. All installations shall conform to applicable electrical safety standards, electrical codes, and industry standards. At least one individual per 9 crew members shall be trained on first aid or CPR, and contractors using equipment such as cranes, cherry pickers, trackhoes, side booms, or any other equipment must maintain the minimum safe distance from overhead power lines, which is 10 feet, and that's from 0 to 50,000 volts. Over 50,000 volts, you add 4 inches for every 10,000 over 50,000. InterBest has both corporate and site-specific emergency response procedures for handling emergencies which could occur on the job site. InterBest will provide awareness of emergency response procedures for contractors as required. All contractors should learn and follow emergency response procedures, and where appropriate, may be required to develop an emergency response plan. Environmental protection is extremely important. You must comply with all applicable regulation related to the protection or conservation of the air, land, water, or other aspects of the environment. Immediately report any spill, discharge, release, or migration of any substance or any quantity to InterBest representative. Trash and waste may not be left on location and shall be placed in appropriate labeled and covered containers. Disposal of contractor-generated waste is the responsibility of the contractor and shall be done in compliance with all applicable regulations. In certain instances, contractors shall comply with the requirement to develop and implement spill control plans for their operations. Excavation and trenching. Before initiating any excavation, trenching, or earth disturbance using mechanized equipment, a ground disturbance checklist for work permit must be completed or obtained from the InterVest representative. Where excavation is greater than 4 feet, a trained, competent person must supervise all aspects of the excavation. They must utilize personal protection systems such as sloping, shoring, or shielding. And daily inspection must be performed, and if evidence of possible cave-ins or slides is apparent, all work in the excavation shall cease until necessary precautions have been taken to safeguard personnel. Fire protection. Portable fire extinguishers suitable to the conditions of the hazards involved shall be provided and maintained by the contractor. Fire extinguishers shall be conspicuously and appropriately located and mounted where readily accessible. Flammable or explosive materials should be kept in appropriate and covered containers or tanks when not in use. Hot work. Any and all hot work will require a hot work permit to be completed. Ensure that fire extinguishers are in the work area where any hot work is to be performed. LEO levels must be below 10% before any hot work can be completed, and a fire watch must remain at site at least 30 minutes after hot work has been completed. Forklifts, backhoes, and other off-highway equipment, only trained and authorized operators shall be permitted to operate powered forklifts, backhoes, loaders, excavators, or other heavy equipment. Brakes of highway trucks shall be set and wheel chocks placed under the rear wheels while parked. Forklifts, backhoes, and other off-highway equipment should be equipped with backup alarm devices, and if at any time the equipment is found in need of repair, defective, or in any way unsafe, the equipment should be taken out of service until it's been restored to safe operating condition. Same thing for hand power tools. Contractors should provide training to all employees on selecting and using proper tools for the job. Your tools should be inspected regularly and any defects limited. Defective tools or lack of proper tools should be reported to your supervisor. You want to pay special attention to driving faces of hammers, chisels, drift pins, bars, or other similar tools to be kept free of mushroom heads, brakes, and any other defects. Hazard materials and work area hazards. Contractors shall notify InterVest before bringing hazard materials on site and shall provide the SDS for each item. Contractors should provide employees with appropriate training regarding hazard identification, proper handling, personal protective measures, proper cleanup, and disposal procedures for each chemical product. All chemical containers should be properly labeled with the labels visible, and incompatible materials shall not be stored together. All this information can be found on SDSs, and if you're using a chemical, please review the SDS prior to use. Housekeeping. Materials should be stored only in designated areas and in properly labeled containers. Areas should be clear around safety-related equipment. Tools, fixtures, and other equipment shall be maintained in good condition and kept in the proper place when not in use. At the end of each workday or when the job is complete, the work area shall be left in a clean and orderly condition. Hydrogen sulfide, H2S. Hydrogen sulfide is a colorless gas with an offensive odor at certain concentrations. In higher concentrations, it cannot be smelled. Any work areas where H2S may be present will be identified. You must have a 4-gas meter, and if a 4-gas meter alerts the presence of H2S, immediately evacuate the area, upwind, crosswind, uphill, and notify your supervisor. Inspections and audits. Contractors shall periodically conduct HSE inspections and audits of their operations, equipment, and work areas as recommended by industry standards. Contractor management shall review audit findings and corrective action plans with InterVest representatives when requested. Lockout tagout. Only trained and authorized employees may conduct lockout tagout. A lockout tagout permit must be filled out, and all affected employees must sign on and off the lockout tagout permit. Lockout tagout equipment will not be used for any other use, and must notify all affected employees upon application and removal of lockout tagout equipment. Lifting and rigging. Only trained and authorized employees are permitted to operate lifting devices or perform rigging operations. Only authorized lifting equipment is permitted. Makeshift and fabricated lifting equipment is prohibited, and taglines shall be used to guide or stabilize suspended loads. Equipment inspections must be happening. Booms, cables, rigging control devices, and safety devices will be inspected for proper operation. Load hooks up to more than 15% of the normal throat opening must be removed from service. Damaged slings should be cut up prior to disposal, and do not walk or stand under suspended loads. Motor vehicles. All drivers and vehicles shall be selected, equipped, and maintained for the applicable driving conditions. The driver shall have a valid license appropriate for the vehicle being driven. The driver shall observe all posted signs and traffic laws. The use of cell phones and two-way radios while driving is strongly discouraged. Least road speed limit is 15 miles an hour. And always, always, always wear your seatbelt. Reverse parking or first move forward parking is required, and we operate on CB Channel 5. Effective communication is extremely important to maintain safety. Norms, natural occurring radioactive materials. Natural occurring radioactive materials is a low specific activity material that exists naturally in the environment. Solid norms typically found in the form of scale and sludge. Gaseous forms of norm are found in some natural gas production streams. In a norm-contaminated environment, eating, drinking, and tobacco products are not allowed. Appropriate PPE shall be worn, and where applicable laws require, an approved training course shall be provided to employees working in or around norm-contaminated equipment and areas. Personal protective equipment. All general PPE must be worn, that is, F-floor clothing for your outermost layer, hard hats, safety toe boots, gloves, and eye protection. Depending on the hazard, additional PPE may be required. If you're working at heights over 4 feet and there's no handrail present, fall protection must be used. Of course, working with chemicals, wear the appropriate chemical protective equipment, and working around noises over 85 decibels, wear hearing protection. Scaffolding and ladders. Scaffolding shall be designed by a qualified person and shall be constructed and loaded in accordance with safety standards. The competent person shall affix a tag to the scaffolding stating that it has been erected correctly and inspected. The ladder shall be checked visually prior to use. The ladder shall also be inspected following any occurrence which may cause damage to the ladder. Do not use defective ladders. Any ladder having damage affecting its safe, you shall immediately have a warning sign affixed to it with word danger, do not use. There shall not be any smoking allowed on property or any facility owned or leased by Intervest except where specific areas has been established and posted for smoking. Where no signs have been posted by Intervest, it is responsibility of the contractor to designate a safe area for smoking, and such areas should be limited according to the hazard potential of that specific area. Violence in the workplace is not permitted. It is one of the company's key objectives to provide a workplace environment free from violence, threats, harassment, coercion, and intimidation for all personnel, employees, contractors, and vendors. Acts of workplace violence will not be tolerated by the company. Any contractor who is found to have violated this policy will be subject to immediate removal from the company property and or prosecution if warranted. Your job hazard safety analysis. Prior to completing work for the day or any task, a job hazard safety analysis must be conducted. This should go over your procedures, your equipment and tools, your PPE, the positions of people. It must be redone if work changes or environmental changes happen. At a minimum, go over your equipment stats, equipment locations, personnel locations, what hazards are present, and how you're going to make those hazards. Make sure everybody signs on and off the JSA. In conclusion, I am Jared Stevens. I am the Senior HSE Specialist for Safety for Virginia Operations. That is my phone number. And then John Lawson is the Senior HSE Specialist and handles the environmental work for Virginia. Please contact us if you ever need to get a hold of us. We're always available. At the end of this video, please go down and fill out the contact card and hit submit so that way we have a record that you've had our training. Thank you. We look forward to working with you in a safe manner.